In an offseason where we turned Jerry Jeudy into a starting defensive lineman and an equally talented receiver in Josh Reynolds. In an offseason where we got our future franchise quarterback. In an offseason where the biggest player we cut still remains not on a team anywhere. The Denver Broncos just went in and dwarfed all of those moves and made the biggest, smartest move of the entire NFL offseason. We're going to break it all down and a ton more in this video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ben. I'm a diehard Broncos fan. Helps me out a ton if you would hit that like and subscribe button as hard as Quinn Meinerz just blasts the A gap and B gap and every single gap that he blocks because he is just absolutely unstoppable. Let's dive into the Denver Broncos, the big move they did, why I think it was so brilliant, some of my favorite plays, what some other star-studded linemen across the league are saying all about him. So the big news of the day is that the Denver Broncos got way, way, way ahead of the curve. They have the entire next season to make a deal for Quinn Meinerz, but we know that the guard market is just taking off. We're going to take a look at some of those stats and the money teams are dumping on guards and why it was so financially smart, why he took a hometown discount, all of that. But the Quinn Meinerz was extended. We gave him a 4-year, $80 million deal, very cap friendly. We'll go into that in a second. And we're going to go through just the reasons why I think this was the best move of the offseason. Reason number one, this shows a tremendous incentive for homegrown players here. We see a ton of his former teammates, his current teammates come out and be like, hey, congrats to Quinn Meinerz. You go from playing D3 at Whitewater in Wisconsin, working out in the wilderness, to now having one of the richest deals of guards in the entire NFL. So for current Broncos who get drafted, there is a reason to keep working. And we have shown that the nepotism and where you're drafted, we no longer care about that. Like, how long was Jerry Jeudy getting targets when he was not producing for us? And that was because we drafted him in the first round and felt like we had to feed him the ball. And so now we have moved on from that, where you're drafted nepotism, to truly a merit-based system. And it does not matter where you're drafted. You are going to get the bag if you produce. And I think that is just the perfect incentive for this hungry young team to just hold that up as hey, we pay our homegrown players, and if you ball out of control, you are going to get the bag. And so we see a ton of his teammates coming to Twitter, coming all over, just being like, congratulations. So always fantastic when you don't have to go and fix your team through free agency. Instead, if you got an amazing talent in-house, give him the bank, and the belly did indeed break the bank. And so totally agree with these couple tweets here, that getting an elite homegrown player that so many dudes, this is your favorite offensive lineman's favorite offensive lineman. He is that guy. And we're seeing that all over the place. So AQ Shipley has been on the Pat McAfee show several times. He played center for the Arizona Cardinals and bounced around the league quite a bit. And he is a bad man, and came out and talked about after that Buffalo Bills game, where Quinn Meinerz was the top-ranked lineman in the entire NFL Week 10 against the Bills. And he's like, hey, he's my favorite football player in all of the NFL. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL. We heard so many of our announcers towards the end of the year saying the same exact thing. It was kind of like that Chris Collinsworth, gushing about the quarterback, but we heard multiple play-by-play dudes just be like, oh, look at him. That guy's different, right? So these are just some of Shipley's comments about him. 3rd-round pick, and now he's figured out technique. He's a dog. And I think this was his best year. And the fact that he's playing under Zach Strief, who also was a dog, who knows how to play the offensive line position, how Sean Payton wants it played, that the technique aspect of it, yes, you have the hard work and the body of Quinn Meinerz, but it's the technique he's learned through Zach Strief that enabled him to have this breakout year this year, which gives us all this hope for the rest of our offensive line, that we are going to trot out Wattenberg or Forsythe as that center position, and we are counting on an amazing offensive line coach to teach them the technique, and all of our eggs are in that basket, and it worked for Quinn Meinerz, and we just got to hope that that continues to work for Frank Crum, the left tackle free agent that we got out of Wyoming, that it works for Wattenberg, or that it works for Forsythe. AQ Shipley continues and says he plays the offensive line with the same level of aggression and take it to the players of an Aiden Hutchinson or a Max Crosby. not ever stopping or slowing down, always trying to put someone on the ground. We're going to look at the plays he was talking about here in 1 second. Oh man. He goes on and says, how do you just lift a dude up from under his armpits and throw him 5 yards, which we're going to look at that in 1 second. He's just getting somebody on every play, just throwing guys. And this was the line I like the best. He said, everyone pictures offensive linemen just destroying people and hit sticking at every play. And he said, if you get one of those in a 6-week span, it's incredible. And this dude is doing it 5 or 6 times a game. So here is the exact game that he's talking about. Here is number 77, just like literally just throwing him around again, pulling, and just the level of explosion that we see from him, and throwing guys 5 yards is not hyperbole. This was one of my favorite plays against the Chiefs, where he is down there with the same level of acceleration that you see our running back there, taking that pile all the way with him. And so I think the first reason this is great is that a sign to all Denver Broncos players that, hey, if you work as hard as Quinn Meinerz, you will get the bag. It does not matter where you're drafted or if you were drafted. And that is going to be what spurs a Denver Broncos comeback and bounce back to the playoffs. Next reason I think this is fantastic news, and this might be my top reason I think it's fantastic news, is awesome tweet here by RK Ryan Koenigsberg from DNVR, who had talked to an insider who was in another war room. And you remember that Quinn Meinerz, because of COVID, because of hand injuries and stuff like that, ended up doing a video on YouTube where he was out blocking trees in a Canadian wilderness. And people thought that was like shticky or not cool, and like just thought he was trying to be viral and not an actual good lineman. And so RK was talking to someone in a different war room who said when the Broncos picked him, that the entire front office just started laughing at us, saying like, aha, they fell for it. Well, the reason that I think this is so great is this shows that for all the whiffs that he made with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, George Paton knows how to identify talent and go out and get it. And we see this entire draft class that Quinn Meinerz was in, with Pat Surtain, with Jonathan Cooper, that we have seen him identify talent. So you just got to say, hey, he did it then back in that draft. Is that same thing going to play out with our current draft? Are we going to be saying the same thing about Chris Abrams-Drain in a couple of years, and the same thing about Troy Franklin, that he's shown us that he can identify talent at a level that other people were laughing at? And what was the last thing everyone was laughing at? The fact that we drafted Bo Nix because of what was in his backpack. Well, hey, who's laughing now? Like, it is us who's laughing now, because we got a dude who can identify talent, and that is absolutely fantastic news. The other reason this is fantastic news is if you take a look at our offensive line room right now, we have a ton of money in the offensive line. And last year, before we lost Cushenberry to the Tennessee Titans, we had the 10th ranked offensive line in the entire NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. We have now dropped to the 15th rank because we don't really know who's going to be running that center position. But what I am predicting right now is that the offensive line a lot is graded upon the production of the running game and the passing game, and that Russell Wilson threw a wrench into this whole thing. I really think our offensive line is way better than 15th and way better than 10th, honestly. Like, that's where all of our money is. And knowing that, like, Sean Payton, he wants a clean pocket. I even heard Chad Brown on DMAC's podcast today talking about it, that Sean Payton prioritizes the offensive line because he wants a clean pocket. Russell Wilson didn't care about a clean pocket. He did his best work when the pocket broke down and he could roll out. That's not the offense that Sean Payton wants to develop. So the next reason this is great news is because Sean Payton wants a beast offensive line, and I think this is showing that it is a beast offensive line. Other reason I think this is fantastic news for the Denver Broncos is that it shows that we are not trying to do what Jerry Jones did, where you have a talent, but you just think, oh, I'll kick the can down the road and we'll deal with that in a couple of years. And now he's at a point with Micah Parsons and their wideout CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, where they aren't going to be able to get all those guys. But because we are being proactive, we have the richest owner in sports who already front-loaded $24 million of this $80 million deal to Quinn Meinerz, and it just shows that we are ahead of the curve. The last reason I think this is a fantastic news right here, obviously the rags to riches story, going from being a D3 player to all of a sudden now being in the NFL and getting this bag. The last reason I think this is good is that I do not think that Quinn Meinerz does this right now if it were not for Sean Payton and George Paton still being here. I think if this was a Nathaniel Hackett-led team with Russell Wilson, I think he would say, like, hey, if I wait till the end of this season, I'll get a bigger deal on the free agent market. But he gave us somewhat of a hometown discount. He could have set the brand new bar. As it is right now, he's the third highest paid guard. And you just saw all those quotes about people saying that he is the best. So he easily could have waited till the end of the season and set that bar even higher and gotten more money. But he believes in the Denver Broncos and what we are doing. And so he allowed us to structure this contract in a way that we still, before the offseason is even technically over, we could still go out and make a deal for Pat Surtain, which would be incredible. Running short on time here, but last thing I wanted to say, just this came across today, and I just had to also put this up here. A lot of times I get called a homer because I think so highly of Sean Payton, and it's amazing here. Colin Cowherd dropped his top list of who are the top head coaches in the NFL, and you got Andy Reid, Sean McVay, John Harbaugh, and then right there is our boy Sean Payton. And so do not let my optimism make you think that, like, oh, Ben's just a homer. He doesn't have an objective view. There are a lot of smart NFL people, Dick Vermeil, I could go on and on, who think Sean Payton is Himothy as well, and that should make us very, very excited. So let me know, how pumped are you to have Quinn Meinerz back, the belly? I think that gives us all permission to grow out our belly. So let's get after that, but we got a lot to believe in. This one's for Quinn.